What's up, everybody? Andrew Goldfarb here from IGN. I'm with Zach Ryan.
It's true. I am here.
And we're talking about the Persona 5 trailer that came out of TGS today. That's the Tokyo Game Show.
That's right.
This came along with the news that it is delayed to summer 2016.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a little bit.
I'm a little sad about it.
Yeah.
But we got this really cool trailer that, in my opinion, kind of makes up for it.
It's an awesome trailer.
This is so cool. So I'm going to back up. We'll start from the beginning here. One of my favorite things at the beginning of this, and just a real subtle thing, is since the beginning, this has been about, like, the very first teaser image was people are chained to a chair.
Right.
And it was saying, like, you're a slave, emancipate yourself, was the rough translation or whatever.
Yeah, you hear a lot, and you see a lot of, like, incarcerated imagery. There's a lot of chains and stuff going around. So, like, obviously this looks like jail bars. Like,
yeah,
right out of the
exactly.
gate.
And I don't even think it is. I think they're just running past, like, an
Yeah.
opening. But it's kind of a cool thematic image that sets up the very beginning of this trailer, which I like. And this is really interesting. This is them escaping from a heist, presumably. They're in trouble. Nothing's going right. There's an English translated version, it's a fan translation going around that makes it seem like they are trying to get out of Dodge real fast, trying to get an escape vehicle
and
if they
it
can.
looks like perhaps they're escaping from a pyramid, as you can see here.
We
this
can
young
back up a
lady
little
is
bit
wearing
to
a Britney Spears outfit.
Yes, exactly. This is immediately after filming the "Hit Me Baby One More Time." Oh, that's actually from the "Oops, I Did It Again" video. I think. So here we'll back up to the beginning of this explosion, and
So this is obviously we're looking at a pyramid here, which I was talking to you a little bit earlier. I think it's really cool that we're looking at these like actual historical landmarks potentially in this game. I think we'll see a lot of this kind of stuff in the trailer as we get further along, but I kind of have this theory that perhaps we're dealing with a more direct alternate reality than we've seen in previous Persona games, like the Dark Hour or as opposed to like the TV world.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You know, obviously in Persona 3, and we'll get to this again in a minute, you had the normal world gets affected at midnight in a thing called the Dark Hour, and then Persona 4, you actually entered a separate world
went into
the
an
TV world.
Yeah.
And I'm inclined to agree with you that this seems to be more of the latter, that you are going into a separate world. However, there's evidence to the contrary that we'll come to in a sec. So this is really interesting as they're escaping. The blonde, whose name is Anne, I believe.
Yeah,
here.
and we see Ryuji over here on the left.
Yep. Who almost looks like Kanji a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit of a softer Kanji. Morgana the cat is in the foreground here, and it's really interesting that she just throws her.
Yeah. This is great. Look how far she throws her.
Yeah, it's a real good throw. I love that.
Yeah.
So this is really cool. We get straight into the gameplay stuff here, which is very exciting to me. You can see here, I think this is kind of a sort of like your sort of downtown area. You can see from the icons, there's maybe a healing place, maybe a place to do some sports, cafe. It looks like a movie theater.
Yeah, so obviously
center.
there's like a lot of social link stuff that's going to be happening here. You know, cafe, go to see a movie with your pals.
Yep. Train station, obviously get around. Apparently this is one of the more, and Zach, you'll have to speak to this because I haven't really been to Japan, but apparently this is one of the more accurate portrayals of Tokyo and Japan in general, and this train station especially is supposed to be very, very, very accurate.
Yeah, you can see all these like signs and stuff behind them, and that's exactly what the signs in Japanese train stations look like. And this trailer even more so than the previous trailer. Like I really feel like they've really nailed that feel and that look, and it like this just screams Shibuya to me. Actually, a little bit later, we'll actually see Shibuya crossing.
I love this weather effects too.
Yeah.
I mean, you obviously had that in P4, and certain social links are only available in the rain and things like that. But I really, really like seeing it kind of fully realized here. Also, just really quickly, I want to point out Morgana in her cat form in the backpack. I love that you see her reacting to things, hanging out in his backpack as he walks around, almost like a Banjo-Kazooie feeling.
Yeah, it looks like she just hangs out with you the whole time, which is so cool. Yeah. And you can see these little speech bubbles and stuff popping up, and that's conversations that you're overhearing like in previous Persona games, and they're talking about what is essentially the main issue, I think, in this game. It's going to be maybe not necessarily a murder, but a case to be solved. There's a lot of talk about an accident here in the train scene, and then also we're hearing a lot about hearts being stolen.
Yeah, and that's kind of the central conceit. It sounds like in this fan translated version that's floating around on YouTube, people are talking about like there's a thief who steals hearts, and that's sort of, every Persona game has this really cool sort of a rumor going around about like the Midnight Channel or things like that. And I think it's really cool.
Down here, if you go back down here in the left hand corner, you can see Ari and Uzi from the Royal Tenenbaums just hanging out. There they are.
There you go. I like getting this look at the school. You see, like, 2D is the classroom name. Again, it reminds me a little bit of 3 and 4, where you're going around to class, presumably going to answer some questions, which we saw in in the first trailer.
Right.
I like you get this outdoor courtyard here. Reminds me a little of Persona 3.
A lot like Persona 3.
This is awesome. So it seems like you'll send text messages to the folks in your party. You see in the top left there's that red iPhone-esque message, like you have a new message badge icon available, like a new SMS. I like how much red is here. Every Persona game tends to have sort of a specific color palette, like Persona 4 Golden was yellow, Persona 3 is a lot of blue. This is very red, and you see it more striking in things like this, and obviously in a classroom here. They're talking about doing the thing tonight in these text messages. Reminds me a lot of in Persona 3 when they're like, hey, let's go to Tartarus tonight,
or in Persona
P4 when they're like, hey,
let's go to the TV world.
Let's go train in the TV world, exactly. This is awesome. This is, we talked about things reminiscent of Persona 3. This is their school becoming something called the Palace, which is a very scary kind of alternate world, I guess, and immediately thought of Tartarus when I saw this, kind of the school becoming this very scary, like shadowy world, even though it's within their real world, and we'll see a little bit later here, just like the coffins in Persona 3, you can see what kind of happens to like the standard citizens in this time, which is a little scary, a little chilling.
This looks to be like probably their first like embarkation into like they're obviously like really surprised in this previous scene where they're talking about what's happened to our school, and then they're kind of headed in here. So I think this is probably the first cinematic that we'll see that introduces them to this alternate palace reality here.
And there's a line dialogue in the VO here that's like, oh, like this is the palace. It is another world, and they talk a little bit later about something that allows you to go back and forth between the real world and there. And you see here, no pun intended, it's bleeding into the real world. You see that like stuff's happening. Now this is interesting. We were talking about this earlier. You had a theory on this. There's a woman talking here, saying, hey, tell me about the thief who steals hearts, and you had a theory about that.
Yeah. So I think we're kind of hearing one of the main antagonists in the game. At first, I thought that it was perhaps like the antagonist, like the main antagonist, but I think I was talking to you a little bit about it, and you had pointed out that there's nothing really surreal happening here. So it seems to me like, obviously, we're going to be playing as a band of thieves, and this seems like maybe a police interrogation, which could set up a really cool sort of, like you have antagonists in your day-to-day life, and then you also have antagonists in the palace and
the supernatural world. Yeah, for sure. This to me just looks like an interrogation room. Like my immediate feeling here is the cops are interrogating him. He's a suspect in this crime, and there's a scene later on we'll get to that kind of, man, I'm doing a lot of foreshadowing. Yeah. But there's a scene that we'll come to later on that kind of
games themselves.
Reminds me of that. Ooh, a very good point. I love this. I love Morgana here. Kind of revealing who she is. There's this line, oh my god, the cat talks. And you would assume this is when Ryuji meets Morgana for the first time.
Right.
But I love this. I love the reveal of her persona here. Really, really cool. Very cool look.
It's got this kind of Zorro flair to it.
Yeah, makes a Z, has a Z in its belt buckle, which I think is interesting. These are some of the shots that we kind of, not these specific shots, but we see him looking at his phone a lot. And we were talking about this. You see this map app, and this strange icon pops up on it.
And we're kind of theorizing that this is probably how we pinpoint our entry locations into the palace area or the palace realm. Sort of like a spooky geocaching kind of thing.
I love that. Yeah, I really like you said that earlier too. I really like that. It does remind me of kind of that rumor going around that like, oh man, like there's something happening if you watch TV at midnight when it's raining. Like they do these really cool things where it's almost like getting this sense of foreboding, something dark happening, and people talking about it. So I really, really like that they're kind of continuing that. This is awesome. This seems like the same downtown area, or a downtown area, but at night, and you can really feel that difference.
Yeah, and it just looks like for anybody that's been to Japan, like this is exactly what like Shinjuku or Shibuya looks like at night. It's just so lit up and like so beautiful and so colorful. I think if they're really going for the most realistic Tokyo, like they've said in previous interviews and stuff, like they've absolutely hit the nail on the head here.
I love that. Yeah, I like this. You see a little bit more of a kind of the platforming. This is clearly in kind of they're breaking into this. You can see at the top how scary and spooky it looks. Seems to be them breaking in for maybe a heist, a little bit of heisting. You see they have their masks on in the corner. So this to me feels like when you're in sort of that otherworldly area, and you can see they're climbing, they're doing some platforming, which I love. This is interesting. This is a cutscene of someone being held against their will. This doesn't seem to be one of our player characters. This could either be an NPC or a party member we haven't met yet.
Right. Yeah. And take it easy, Internet. That was not a nipple. That was just a button.
This we've seen him on the train before.
This was from the reveal trailer.
Long commute he must have. I love that ink effect as they're running. Just God, I love the
So
aesthetic.
this is sort of the screenshot or this is sort of the look that kind of led me to believe that we're dealing with a kind of Zelda-like light and dark world in this game.
For sure, and like we were saying before, like kind of like the coffins in Persona 3. Look at those grayed out, still frozen people
back
over there.
Here, yeah.
Really, really spooky. And then yeah, more platforming here as well.
I think this is such a cool mechanic to put into a Persona game. Like I love the idea that the verticality that you're playing with in each of these like pre-dungeon areas, maybe like.
It looks a little more free roaming too. Like I mean, obviously you can walk around downtown and stuff, and go to the mall in P3 and walk around in Persona 4. But like the fact that you can like scale buildings and stuff, and I'm sure it's restricted, but it's just really, really interesting. It kind of messes with the mechanics a little bit. And then yeah, like that just looks so otherworldly and weird. Love this. I mentioned Banjo-Kazooie earlier. This is almost Mario 64-esque. I love seeing them traverse between these locations.
Yeah, it's got a cool like Harry Potter vibe. They're jumping frame to frame.
I was thinking of this too. You know, if you look, this almost seems like maybe they're choosing between which dungeon to go to. Like, we saw the pyramid earlier. Maybe this is the painting to go to the pyramid.
Oh, yeah, undoubtedly.
And then maybe this is like a forest area. Like, maybe you're selecting... Maybe this is almost a menu, and you can revisit dungeons or go to new areas.
That's kind of a cool way to get around, like in Persona 4, you know, just asking or telling Teddy, like, yeah, I want to go back to here. Or,
exactly,
you know,
yeah. So that would be really cool if that's what this is. And again, like Mario 64, jumping into the paintings to decide where you want to go. Love this. This is kind of Anne's Persona. We get a little bit of a better look later. This is Ryuji's. Really love this pirate sitting on a boat. We're trying to predict a little bit who might be which element. Maybe because this is kind of a nautical theme, it would be more of like Bufu, which is the ice element, like the watery thing.
Yeah, he'd be more inclined to that. We see it later, but Anne's Persona is clearly a fire elemental.
Yeah, the Agi.
Agi, yeah.
AG. This guy we think might be a new party member. So this shot's really interesting for a couple of reasons. Number one, this guy seems to be someone different who we haven't met yet, but also this is the mechanic. So in Persona 3, they use an evoker, which is the pistol you hold your head and shoot yourself. If you look at this, it's pretty graphic, actually, when you go frame by frame. He's literally, the mask is attached to his face, and he's ripping it off. Yeah, and you see, so I'll play it fast and then slow. You see the blood splatter, which is just... absolutely brutal.
And every Persona game has that sort of idea of like bond and sacrifice to your persona, and it just like this seems to be the way that they're summoning their personas.
Yeah, and it's I do think this guy is a whether it's an enemy or a party member, it's someone that we haven't seen yet, which is very exciting because you know, like every Persona game has like, you know, 6, 7, 8 different people. Obviously in Persona 4 you're starting with just kind of that baseline crew of Chie and Yukiko and Yosuke, but then you meet these other people that are further outside of their realm. And Persona 3 is even more so because you start with all the people in C's, the high school students who are kind of a group when Makoto joins them, but then you're meeting all these other, like, you know, Koromaru and like Shinji, who's no longer at the school, and all these people who are like kind of from a more far out like circle. I like the idea of them incorporating more people that maybe even aren't from the high school.
I really like this guy's Persona style too. It's like a very traditional Japanese sort of style.
Yeah, and I like you see these guys getting just blown away by him. Love the text that almost reminds me of like an all-out attack thing or some kind of cool like special effect that's happening.
And you see it a lot, like throughout the combat and throughout just like these little scenes here. Like,
I love those are SMT demons from Shin Megami Tensei. But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's all I was gonna say.
Also, you pointed out these in the bottom right, everyone's health and SP. They're holding up almost like the cards
like
you would hold in a mugshot
card. Yeah.
So cool. Really, really cool that that's like a continuing motif.
So we're theorizing that this is likely somebody's dungeon.
It could be, yeah.
It looks to me like it's got that kind of vibe, like just judging by the map alone, but super futuristic, which is really cool. And not something that we've seen a ton in Persona. Like,
and actually, I'm just noticing now over to the left that almost this could be connected to the scene after because it looks like tickers, right? Like that could almost be like a Wall Street ticker over there. Maybe that's just lights, but it's it's over on the left.
This is obviously a lot later in the game. We're in September. We started in April.
Ah, interesting. Good point. I love this. This is, I think, someone transforming into their shadow, it looks like. Maybe someone becoming... And you see all this money in the ground behind them. You'll see a little bit more of that later. But yeah, this guy not having a good day.
Sprout some real weird wings.
Yeah, it's Jeff Goldblum in The Fly. And I think you see... Scary eyes. You see, this is obviously another guy who... This is his shadow, right? This is him. Probably a boss battle.
Yeah, and you can see a lot of these sort of... That's a volleyball? He's throwing a volleyball?
Yeah, it's
that's
really weird. It says... Sumiko on it.
But earlier he's holding a glass of wine, and then you can see there's like girls in bikinis behind him.
And this is maybe so this is actually looks like the same futuristic setting we saw a second ago if you look behind them. So maybe that actually was a bank vault. You see all this money. Maybe that's a place they went to rob and something goes horribly awry.
And it looks like this is the aftermath of that fly boss. Like a lot of that money is flying around.
Yeah, you see some more of the mask stuff here. This is that other kind of mysterious party member, it looks like, or whoever that is. Here you see Anne with her persona.
This is the shot we were talking about. Like,
see those
obviously
fire
she's
effects.
yeah,
Definitely. And I love that
Yeah.
persona. It's so cool, and that striking red again, that color palette. Love that dark mask is so cool. And honestly,
got such a
because
cool
of his
mask.
like fiery blonde hair, like he looks like Ghost Rider. Like
Yeah,
I
a little bit.
love that so much. This is an interesting shot, Zach.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that your party has been transformed into mice here.
I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
They're wearing the masks of the characters. You can see each of their individual masks here by colors, and then obviously in the bottom right you see that these are your player characters that are around. Also, this kind of fancy building looks like in that original gameplay trailer that was the very first one we saw.
Yeah, where they're jumping from
the chandeliers. Exactly. Yeah.
And I
you
love
see
that
the map.
I love that the enemy avatars are these sort of like juggernaut-looking dudes.
Yeah,
like that's so much cooler than a black blob.
Yes, for sure. I think it's a little more interesting than just the shadows that we're used to. Almost reminds me of Dishonored, like the dinner party scene here.
Yeah.
This is really cool. Kind of an Indiana Jonesy moment, as you described it.
Right.
I think it's really interesting that you have that barcode on there. Like, I don't know what that is. I think it's super interesting for sure. I just love this shot.
Well, you were talking about how Persona has these sort of themes of like greed and capitalism and stuff, and this is obviously something that could harken out to that. Like,
especially if they're stealing money. Like maybe that vault, maybe they're not stealing that money. Maybe they destroyed that bank vault on purpose. Almost like a vigilante thing. These are some mini games. Looks like.
Yeah, this is a whole montage of mini games. We're playing baseball. We're punching a luchador.
I freaking love that Morgana's hanging out up there.
Yeah.
It's just the best.
We also saw another mini game that's not in this trailer that where you can play video games with the cat, which is
Morgana
really cool.
sits next to you. So this next shot is my favorite thing. This is probably my favorite thing this whole trailer. Honestly, this is the effect it looks like of when you get a persona. So again, I'll play it fast and then slow. It looks like that you beat the enemy. They turn into a mask, and then you pick up that mask. It's really, really cool. And then that mask is obviously what you put on to don that persona.
Right.
So we can watch that one more time in kind of slow motion. Looks like you have kind of this persona as it is get transformed into a mask, which is really, really cool.
And then you can immediately equip that mask.
Yep. And you see him put it on, and then here's the persona kind of coming out of him. So cool. I just
here we see another like more chains and stuff.
Yep. Here's kind of this seems to be more of establishing the story now. So that was a lot of gameplay stuff. Here you get a few cutscenes. Seems interesting here, like almost like there's a bigger, larger problem than just what's happening to these kids.
That seems like that's one of the most interesting things to me about the end of this trailer is like the scale of the conflict seems much larger than previous Persona stories, where those stories were very like small and personal and centered around one group. Like, yeah, and this is like here we're seeing these sort of like protesters, and you'll see this like giant crowd. They're all watching this one event. We don't know what it is.
And there's this like this barrier. Yeah, it's really interesting because again, Persona 3 and Persona 4 had different mentalities. Persona 3 is very much like you are saving the town of Inaba. There's a serial killer harassing Inaba. Persona 3 is literally saving the world.
Right.
Like it is you were trying to eradicate the Dark Hour to save the world, and this seems to have gone to more of a bigger scale, at least within Japan. Look at that gathering of people.
Yeah.
Really
and it looks like they're all watching. I don't know if we're taking a look at like this event here, like whatever this explosion is here, or this next shot, which is our protagonist. He's obviously on this big screen, which leads us to believe that he gained some sort of notoriety. You had an idea that he was kind of this sort of V for Vendetta kind of personality.
Yeah, almost like or like if you've watched
some kind of Vox Populi or something.
Exactly, just kind of like making a speech wearing his mask. Or it could just be that he's the masked man who's responsible for whatever's going on.
Right.
We don't have a lot of context yet. I kind of like that. I would kind of rather go in not knowing, but really, really cool. And maybe this leads into why he's being interrogated by the police,
right,
if that's what's happening. You see one more cool shot of that right here. Yeah. I love just the end of the sequence.
Right, and we were kind of theorizing that that you're going to play as sort of an anti-hero. Like, we have yet to really explore that in Persona games, but like maybe you kind of do play as a bad guy, because this sort of mischievous grin at the end leads us to believe that there's, maybe a little malevolence behind this character.
Yeah, he's a 16-year-old kid, but like maybe you're not playing as a good guy. Like maybe he is doing these crimes because he's greedy, or maybe to the police, this is a bad crime, but to him, he's saving the world. Like, we just don't know, and that's why Persona games are so interesting, because the morality of it can be a little grayer,
Right.
and can, they're kind of about self-discovery and about finding bonds with people, and
Right.
I think it's super, super exciting. So, Zach, that is the news trailer for Persona 5, as we'll see here. Unfortunately, coming in summer 2016.
Got pushed back a whole year.
Not 2015 as
Right.
we were thinking, but I'm
It
really,
is
really
a bummer,
excited for this.
but honestly, like, the trailers are so promising. Like, I'm more than willing to wait for this game. I know it's going to be great.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
It looks awesome. As it says here, PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 3. We will have hopefully a lot more on Persona 5, possibly even before TGS is over. So stay tuned to IGN. Zach, thank you for joining me.
Yeah, right on. Thanks for having me, Andrew.
And for all your Persona needs, keep it locked to IGN.com.